Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for, again, sending us some interesting question again. Very nice. Anthony, I think you're actually speaking about qualifying. I don't understand running around at 60K and everyone's scrambling the last 40 seconds. Could the team not utilize its own driver to side draft in qualifying while the track is clear and everyone else is sitting in the pits? Anthony, that can't work, unfortunately, because, by example, in qualifying 3, we had only one car in the top 10. The other problem is with 10 minutes on a track which is only 2.6K long, you are always going to have a bit of a traffic. The cars are spaced at the very best within 100 meters. If you imagine, there is 2.8 kilometers and there's 26 cars going around. So, unfortunately, we cannot have a spacing idle, and some driver wants to have a bit of a draft, and some prefer to be on their own. At Simon Plain in Tasmania, it's clear that the draft is a good 1.5 10. So, if you are all running together, basically, everybody draft each other, really somewhere. Now, in the top 10, which is the last bit of it, nobody wants really to lead because you're giving the draft to somebody else. By the same token, you are going to start your lap at some stage. And with Jimmy and with Tim, especially on Sunday, our plan was to run 2 laps. The second lap is a better lap for us. So at some stage, you become too late to enter your process, so you've got to go there. Where some driver probably can do it in 1 lap or 2 laps, we were more looking at the third, 1 warm lap and two quali lap. And that's why probably we ended up leading the pack, which we didn't want to, but it's not always easy. And I've seen it many times in Tasmania where you go out and then everybody stop in the back straight and just wait. And it's a bit like in the Olympic when you're doing the cycling on the velodrome. There's always a chaser, and they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait, and one tries to go, and the other one usually, which follow, is the winner. So yes, that's not easy, unfortunately, and that's the nature of that track. That doesn't happen often. You have to have nerve. Plan well your strategy, and I actually decided to put team out, thinking other people were going to drop in front of us, but they didn't, and then we were probably hanging dry a bit on that one. Glenn, hi Ludo, after Saturday race, what part of the car do you have to service to get the car ready for the next day? Well, we do the oil check on every systems, which is engine, gearbox, steering. We check the car usually after the race. We always check. We do a set down. So we set up the car for the race and we set down. And set down is actually a lecture, a view of where the car finished the race, camber, toe, etc. And that will tell us right side, and that will tell us if the car has had damage during the race or if the car is as planned as it was before the race, it came back out of the race right. So that will give us a direction. And then, as I said, the main things are usually making sure that the working part of the car, as I said, even the brakes, we check the brakes. Sometimes we take the caliper off and we put fresher caliper or things like that. So there is plenty of little works to add to just planning for the next qualifying, which is the Sunday morning. Daniel, I would like to understand tires. The team get allocated new set every round. B, you use a certain amount for practice and qualifying and the race. C, how does it work out, especially the weekend with wets? Let's take the example of Tasmania. We get out there and we've got what we call 2 carryovers. So we are actually bringing in Tasmania 2 sets of tires which come from our own bank. We haven't got to buy them. We bought them earlier on and they are in the team. So we bring them there to do the practice. Secondly, the championship gives us 7 tires, which we buy, but it's given to us. 7 sets of tires for the race weekend. 1 set of these tires need to be used Friday and is given back to the Dunlop truck and will be given back to us on Sunday afternoon late, which means that set will never go racing. It's to enforce that all the teams will have a green run, what we call a green run, a new set of tires on Friday, so that people can talk about what happened on Friday, etc. And there's some fast lap. And that's the best system. So what we usually do, we run one lap with this green set, and then throw them back in the bank of tires after the weekend, and then they come back, usually 1 or 2 races later, they come back as the tire that we bring from our own bank. So we ended up with 7 sets, as I said, of green tires, 1 just for practice. 6 sets are left now for the race, and you can imagine we've got 2 races, 1 pit stop. That means there's nearly 1 too many set. Now, if there were a safety car late in the race, and we've used 2 sets of tires, we could actually drop another set of tires. And that's the reason why the racing is a bit more interesting now, because we've got enough sets of tires to do various strategy. We can do 2 stop, 1 stop. It's up to us, and that the thing that we are mixing strategy means the racing gets better, more unpredictable, you know what I'm saying? So that's the positive of it. On the wet, Dunlop will tell us, and it will vary, will tell us how many wets we are allowed to use during the weekend. I think this weekend we were allowed to use 7 wets because they bring a lot in Tasmania when you're in winter. Rain can happen, and we had just a little bit of rain on Saturday morning, but it could have been a full wet race, and we could have had to use 2 sets of wets for both races and qualify on wets. So 7 sets would have been a good number, again, to allow everybody to do the best job possible. Brandon, how did the team handle the technical issue, like the ignition problem on this car, and what lessons were learned? Well, we had actually, on a Sunday morning, we had 2 issues on the cars. We changed the gearbox on Jimmy on Saturday night because we had some misshift during the race. And unfortunately, on Sunday morning, we were still having misshift. So it highlighted somewhere that the gearbox was probably not the issue. On Friday, we changed the cable. We thought could have been an issue. And then we learned on Sunday morning, we found probably a setup issue in the gear shift itself, which could have caused the problem. We addressed that issue on the gear shift itself, the mechanism of the lever. And we haven't had an issue since. Does that say we've cured the problem? I wouldn't say that. We'll wait and make sure that with a given gearbox, a given cable, and the gear shift in the right position and with everything sorted out, that doesn't happen again. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to wait a bit about that. On team car, we changed the engine at home and came with a fresher engine because we had to take the other one which were out of date. So it worked and did all the race. Alas, and unfortunately, we protect the cable for the ignition with a sort of heat shield. And it's quite precise. It goes in between the tube of the exhaust. It's quite narrow and precise. And unfortunately, we must have kinked a little bit towards the exhaust, that shielding, and it burned through and sparked through the exhaust. So basically, we were losing 1 cylinder on Sunday morning because of our work at home. We didn't bring the car in the best position with the best mechanical work, and that bite us on Sunday morning. I mean, we were lucky it didn't happen in qualifying. It happened in practice. We had 1 extra practice, and we cured the problem very quickly. It's always difficult to find a 1-cylinder issue because there's nothing telling you it's that cylinder. And because the exhaust is all hot and it's very hot down there, we can't even just touch the exhaust and try to see, yeah, that's probably this one. On top of that, that part is very difficult to access and to change quickly. So that affects us because we didn't do a lot of pre-qualifying job on Sunday. But actually, because the car were fast, and we were lucky on that one, we had a very good qualifying I thought, on Sunday. We just didn't execute the last Q3 very well. Harry, I read in one of your weekend wrap-up press release that you discovered the issue with Jimmy's gear shifter that had been bothering you for the last few months. Could you share what problem was? Well, actually, we thought we had found all the issue of the gear shift. And I think we've definitely clearly found one. I can't share all the detail, but we clearly have found one issue, which is in a part which is supplied to us. By the same token, there's a gearbox, there's a cable, there's a shift rod, and there's a mechanism on the front, which is the lever. And in one of these, if the steering ball, the joints are too tight, if the gear shift is not precisely set up, it can actually activate a misshift. And it's often in first gear, first to second. When the gearbox is not perfect or everything is not perfect, it will highlight itself first to second. That's where the torque is the most in the gearbox. That's probably the most difficult gear to engage, the second after first. And unfortunately, Tasmania, every single lap, at the hairpin, we engage first. If usually on most of the track, we only engage once the first gear, which is at the start, like AGP. You put first gear, go to second, and you're in second for the rest of the race. You never go back to first. So it doesn't pop up as a problem often, but yes, it's a very tricky element. So we thought we found the issue, and then we found the third element, which can be an issue. So I think now we've got three elements that we know what they should be all the time and well set up. And that was probably an oversight of us, engineering group, to not say this needs to be like that, this needs to be like that, and this needs to be like that. And when one of the three doesn't work, the gearbox doesn't change first to second. But then it still works second, third, fourth, and fifth, sixth. So it's one of these. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, and then you're out of the sequence. Phil. Hi Ludo, what adjustment did you make to the car setup after practice 3 to improve performance in the race? Well, we didn't do a lot in practice 3. We actually sorted the car out, so there was no improvement to the car in practice 3. I think we've read very well race 2. The driver, Tim was pretty precise of what he wanted a bit better. So race 2 was not bad. And we knew what to do for race 3, probably a bit better. On the quali, we did a little change because we knew the grip had probably come up because of the racing earlier on the green track. Simon Plain is not a track which is very used. So on top of it, during winter, it's used, but on wet, so it basically washed. You've got to realize that some of the little bit of compound that we lay up on the track are actually very sticky, and they stay on the track for a while, which means when you run on a green track, what we call a green track, which has got no compound, you slide a little bit too much, where you're lucky to put a deposit of compound on the track, all of a sudden you get a bit quicker. So for Sunday, we thought the grip was going to be higher, and it was. And for that, you need to change a little bit the setup so that the car works in a different window or a bit sideways. And I think we did that well, which is why we qualified well. The race car was really good, in my opinion, for 40 laps. I've checked the tire this morning. I still believe the tire were okay. I think when I look at team issue in the last 4 laps of the race, we must have had a couple of pickup. When the incident with Randall happened with Feney, we run a bit of track, pick up some dust and pick up some rubber, and that affected the next couple of corners. And I think all of a sudden, Tim was put back a bit and wanted to finish the race on the high and not in the fence, and took a bit of care. He thought he had a delaminating tire. He thought he had an issue on his rear, but we can't see that. The tire is still in good shape. So it must have been a couple of issues, picking some dust, picking some rubber. And that when you pick rubber for a while before you clean it, it unsettles the car. And yeah, that's what we think. So yeah, no big improvement from P3, but we did improve from having a good read of the race one on Saturday. Stefan, what was the biggest challenge the team faced at Simon Plain? How did you overcome it? Well, the biggest challenge was probably that practice 3, where we had 2 big incidents on the car and couldn't really do lap times. The car, I mean, everybody stayed calm and just applied the process. And the process is to try to analyze again and again and again. And I think we came on top of the issue of the engine quite quickly. Took a bit more time again on the gearbox because that was a recurring issue. So what was interesting is because we changed the gearbox the day before, we knew the gearbox wasn't going to be the issue. We can't have twice the same problem with 2 different parts. So that put the gearbox on the side. We did the cable earlier on, so that put the cable on the side. So we focused on the rod and the activation of the rod, which is the gear lever, and we found a little setup issue there, which probably, made us not having any issue the rest of the weekend. So these were the biggest issue over the weekend so far. Michael, can you break down the decision-making process during the pit stop, particularly under safety car? Pit stop under safety car. There is 2 styles of pit stop under safety car. There's an early pit stop, where all the cars are bunched up together. It's never a nice one, because what does that mean? That means you're going to get your first car in, change tires, 2 tires, 3 seconds, and as you come out, there is still incoming cars. So you lose time because of that, unfortunately, so for your first car. And the second car is coming in, and he's already with a lot of car in pit lane coming in and coming out. So he's losing even more time, and he's set a second time. So that actually makes it quite tricky. So when you're in a tricky situation, one of the first things you want to do is simplify everything. So we have a rule, and I think most of the team in pit lane have a rule, where safety car early, we decide which tire we're going to change, and it's for both cars. So the team is set up. It's not like I'm going to get the front, you're going to get the rear, I'm going to get the sides, or I'm going to get the other side. The setup is simple. Both cars will change rears, both cars will change sides. So that's one thing, first of all. And I think as soon as you say that everybody knows their position, they know the game, they know where to put the tire around the car, because there's going to be one and another. So that's the case of early safety car, when your car is quite close together. A later safety car, like lap 20, everything is spread out. So all of a sudden, the decision making there is, am I in my window of changing tires? Which, I could have decided to change around 20 for a 55, or a 25 for a 55. And the safety car board comes, 2 laps before. Well, that's very simple then. I'm going to do my pit stop and just change the tires. And then the other car, which is probably 10 or 15 seconds behind, we are not speaking about fuel load there, will come, and because he's 10 to 15 seconds behind, it will be a very smooth system in some way, because he's going to follow his teammate, but with a gap. And we are not going to struggle to put his tires on and get him out. Now, it will still be a safety car pit stop, which means it's crowded pit lane, people coming in, people coming out, etc., etc. So you have to give priority. You've got to be aware have more awareness, and it's difficult for obviously the car controller, because he's got to release you into a crowded lane. You know what I'm saying? And the worst position is always where we are, unfortunately, today, which is why we are trying to move forward in pit lane, because when you're at the entry, and if you're leading the race by example, or very close to the lead, you come in, and then all of a sudden you've got, 20 cars, let's say, passing your pits and coming in. You can never really get out. You can actually lose the lead of the race, even the top 5 spot, by just not being able to pull out and get into the main lane and fast lane of pit lane and go out. So this is the sort of challenge. If you're lucky enough and you're leading the race and you can see that the safety car board is out, but the safety car is not out of pit lane, then we say we beat the safety car. You do one more lap, which means all the people behind you are going to get into pit lane, change their tires, go out, rejoin. maybe catch the safety car or maybe in front of the safety car, and you're going to come in with a less crowded pit lane, which means you will be way more likely to change your tires when you want and as you want, which without, you know, waiting to go out for all that pit lane traffic. And these are the sort of decisions you've got to take. And you haven't got 2 minutes to take them. You've got 10 seconds at the very best. And sometimes you get it wrong. Let's face it. You want to beat the safety car. You go out. Safety car hasn't come out. You've got to decide that before the entry of pit lane, as you can imagine. You come out, and then the safety car comes out and peel in front of you. All of a sudden, you're behind the safety car, and you're the leading car. So you're going to do a slow lap and then come into pit lane. That's your race gone. You know what I'm saying? But that was the challenge you needed to take to make sure that you were not going to have all that traffic behind you. If there's a lot of traffic, that's maybe the challenge. So yeah, the decision-making process is quite complex, and it's depend on the fact around you, what's happening around you, and where you are on track. How late is it in the race that there's a safety car? I hope that helps you understanding. There is no textbook for safety car and pit stop 2 cars. Thank you very much for all of that. We will have something exciting to share with you all before sundown. So keep an eye on our social media, guys. That will be very interesting. And now on a side note, we've lost one of our mates, really. Campbell Little. I worked for him and with him for 4 years at Triple Eight. He helped us a lot set up that team and where it's at. He got us Craig Lowndes with us. He was engineering Craig Lowndes for 4 years, finishing 3 or 4 times in the second in the championship. So we want to have a thought for his 3 daughters and Claire, his lovely wife. And we just, yeah, we are in pain as a community. He was one of us, and he's gone way too early for us. Thank you.